What is going on, everybody? Welcome and happy Tuesday. We are back for another episode of TAETRO Talks. As you can hear, I'm losing my voice a little bit, which is quite ironic for a show called TAETRO Talks, but hey, here we are, we're pushing through. And luckily, I won't have to be doing much of the talking today because we have a great interview with Theus Mago. So get ready for that, but I want to do some table setting first. Let's talk about some logistical stuff that's going on. First of all, the artist we're interviewing today, Theus, has a pro sessions coming up this weekend with 343 Labs. And if you don't know what a pro session is, it's basically like a weekend deep dive with an artist behind some of their projects, behind some of their setup, their production techniques, their musical process in general. So that's really exciting. So as we go through the interview today, or if you're already familiar with Theus, if you want to think about joining that pro session, the link is in the description. And also for 24 hours after this interview is live, you can get a discount on the pro session, and that's with the code TAETRO Talks. All that info is in the description though, so keep an eye on that. We are, of course, brought to you by 343 Labs, which is an electronic music school based in Berlin, New York, and online. Classes on Ableton Live, Logic, synthesis and sound design, mixing and mastering, all that good stuff. So if you are interested in leveling up your music production skills, it's worth it to check out 343labs.com. Not to mention, we've got streams all the time, multiple times a week on youtube.com/343labs. And I know a lot of you are watching from there. So thank you to everybody who is watching from the 343 Labs YouTube channel. If you're watching from my channel, take a minute, open a new tab, trying really hard to get 343 Labs to 10,000 subscribers. That would be amazing. So consider going to subscribe over there. That would be great. It would mean a lot. And I see some folks in the chat already. As usual, when we get into it with the guest, if you have questions that come up and they make sense in the conversation, I'll do my best to weave them into the conversation. So please feel free to leave those in the chat as we go. As usual with our guests, it's great to hear their journeys. It's great to hear the process of a professional musician, producers, DJs, people who are really doing it. So I think there's value in this interview, even if with all the interviews, even if you haven't heard of any of the artists that we've interviewed, it's worth it to hear the journey, and maybe you'll discover your new favorite artist today. Who knows? But I want to say hello to everybody in chat. Hello to Jesse, who became a member right before the stream started. Thank you so much for becoming a member. We just recently hit 137K subscribers. Thank you for that, and surpassed 150 members. So thank you, thank you. Hey, my mom and dad are in the chat. What do you know about that? Emilio, hello. What is going on? Blade, Ray Calvin, Samuel Messiah, Powell watching over on 343 Labs channel. Hello. OSR The Journey. What's going on? Beisha is here. The Random Name X. Hello. Random Name X says, I bought your merch. Thank you so much. I appreciate that. Gabriel Macedo. What's going on? And Shazam. Hello. Thank you all for being here. Oh, Max Wild is here, of course. Happy to see you, Max. Thanks for joining today. Dayolo Bros, Brawl Gamers. Hello, 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 everybody. All right, the music that you're hearing right now in the background, at least I think that you're hearing it, is by our guest. And I think that we've done enough of an intro. I think it's time to get into the interview. Lots to talk about with our guest today. So please help me in welcoming our guest, Theus Mago. Theus, welcome to the show. Thank you for being on.
How are you, Nick? Thanks for inviting me.
Yes, this is a great opportunity, great chat. Thank you for taking the time for being on the show. I like to start these interviews with asking you, I know like a lot of times electronic musicians, they get thrown under the umbrella of DJ, producer, and yeah, those are accurate terms, but I would love to hear how, when somebody asks you what you do, what do you tell them? How do you define what you do as a musician, as an artist, as a DJ?
Yeah, I guess I'm more of a producer than a DJ.
Totally.
But I've been DJing for the same amount of time that I've been producing, so both. And before the pandemic, I used to DJ as a living. So yeah, I think I'm both things.
Nice. Do you find that DJing is maybe slightly more of a viable pathway to make a living versus production? Is that sort of what draws a lot of people to that? Because I hear that from a lot of people.
I'm not sure if it's more viable. It was for me because, I don't know, that's the path I got.
Yeah.
I chose, I guess. And I got into it since I was 20 years old or something,
Wow.
18 years old. And but it's a good question because now it's changing. Since
Totally.
I'm not teaching a lot, I'm looking for new incomes, new sources of income, and producing for other people, mixing for other people, mastering. That's some of the things I used to do way less than I do now.
Right.
Yeah.
And how are you liking
So
that kind of transition? Are you dying to get back on stage? Are you dying to do more of the performing? Or are you sort of liking this new stage that you're in?
I like it. I prefer to be at the studio more time and make an income of it, because it used to be more like to produce my own productions. And I mean, the studio time used to be um, dedicated to that, and it didn't translate it into money directly, because
Right.
releasing music can make you some money, but not really a lot, unless you're like more mainstream or have a lot of streams and stuff. But in my case, it didn't mean like a big revenue. So it was mostly to promote myself doing music. And I guess a lot of producers are in the same situation, especially like dance music, underground dance music producers. Um, so so yeah, now that I'm spending more time at the studio to have a revenue of it, I like it. It's yeah, I think I'm comfortable with
Nice.
this situation. Yeah,
Awesome.
and yeah, but I mean, it's still not the same as compared to DJing,
Of course.
but it's growing. I mean, you have to make a network of it. You have to have more clients,
Yeah.
grow
And
the
I
same
want
way.
I want to get into all that because I think you could probably share a lot of wise advice for our audience out there. But let's take it back. Let's actually go from where it all started. How did you get into this world? It sounds like maybe DJing came first. Like what was the start?
Yeah, it was kind of almost at the same time, but I guess I started DJing around 15, 16 years old. My friend had one turntable actually and a mixer.
Nice.
He didn't even have two turntables. He had one turntable and one CD player. Yeah.
There you go. So you're
So
mixing
yeah.
between the two?
Yeah, we had to mix between the two, and that's how I learned with him. He's my best friend still to date, and I actually run a label with him.
Awesome.
And yeah, that was around 16 years old, and I don't know, maybe a few months later, I probably got into Reason, Propellerhead's Reason. I probably downloaded a copy, an illegal copy of it, because back then it was so easy.
Allegedly. Who can say?
Yeah.
Allegedly.
And yeah, I started making music with Reason, and I
Nice.
think I kept doing music with it like for 3 or 4 years. Then I switched to, I think it was Cubase, and then Nuendo, and finally to Ableton, and I've been using Ableton Live for like 10 years or
Wow.
more.
So you got the whole experience. You got that foundation of the Cubase and Reason. What made you hop between them? Were there things that you were missing? Did you find that there were things in your process that you needed from different types of software?
Um, I don't know. Probably it was a bit of hype. I got the hype about Ableton, because when I started using it, I don't think I used the session view, which
Sure.
is for me it's the most distinctive part of Ableton.
Of course.
Um, So I cannot recall a real reason to change from Cubase and to Ableton. Um, yeah, probably the hype. But then I discovered the session view, and I use it a lot. And I think I always encourage my students to use it because not many people use it. Even if they use Ableton Live, they don't use the session view. And I'm like,
What's the
guys,
point?
this is the best part of Ableton. You should use it.
Totally.
Definitely.
I mean, it does the thing of, for me, I use Session View as a musical sketch pad at times, but then it's also a valuable performance tool. And then I find
Exactly.
a lot of people that swing the other direction that almost exclusively use Session View have a lot of trouble finishing tracks because they don't know how to properly get their ideas over onto the arrangement. So like it's a double-edged sword on that front. But before we
Yeah.
dive into like nitty-gritty of like live and all that stuff, I wonder, did having an experiences with DJing and getting that start that way and then also learning production, did it inform the kind of music you were making? Like who were you being influenced at the time and what made you say, okay, I want to make my own tunes, I don't want to just DJ with other people's music?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, when I started DJing, I was into progressive house music. It was the days of the global underground sound,
Nice.
and I was into that. All this John Digweed, all these British guys mostly, uh, and I also used to listen other types of music like quartet and stuff like I've always listened to a lot of different types of music. Actually, I studied classical music, so
Oh,
there
tell
was a
me about
time
that.
there was a time I didn't even listen to electronic music because I wanted to be a classical guitar performer.
Okay.
So I abandoned a bit of the production, but it's so competitive,
Totally.
and
It's a totally different scene.
yeah, yeah, you need to be like really like a virtuoso.
8 hours a
And
day of practicing and that kind
yeah,
of
eight
thing.
hours a day of practice and not really create. I mean, you can, of course, you can compose, but I was studying performance, and
It's just learning repertoire all day.
yeah, and I was not composing for classical guitar. I was when I had time, free time, I used it to produce music,
Right.
electronic music. So yeah, when I ended the career, I didn't want to be a classical guitar performer anymore, and
Nice.
that's where I started teaching, like uh, yeah, full time almost. Yeah, I started to have my first paid gigs when I was like 20, 21. Uh, yeah, and then I got into a rock band, kind of, yeah, new wave synth rock band that they're still playing. They're called Ray Pila. Actually,
Nice.
they play a lot in the US, some festivals, and I played with them for like 2 or 3 years, but then I stopped to to focus on my projects. On back then, I wasn't called Theus Mago. My name was Bufi, Bufi. Uh, I still release some music under that name,
Yeah.
but yeah, mostly now it's Theus Mago.
I want to dive deeper into this idea because you just took us through this whole journey of like, okay, there's you as the classical guitar player, and then you as the producer, you as the DJ, and then this artist name, and then that artist name. Like,
Yeah.
how do you, what's the best way to ask this question? I want to talk about focus as an artist. Do you feel that like there is the need to have these different identities for you as an artist to express yourself in all these different ways? And like, do you find benefits of that? And do you find also like, drawbacks of that?
Yeah, that's been an important subject for me and a difficult subject because um, yeah, I had different projects because I had different musical interests. I guess Bufi was more inclined towards new disco sound kind of sound, a bit more joyful, I guess,
Yeah.
a bit more funky. And when I started to have, I started to listen a lot more uh, kind of electro clash music, but not well. I used to listen a lot of electro clash back in 2008, 2010, but around 2014, I started to listen a little bit more techno and a little bit more obscure things, I
Darker
guess.
stuff.
Yeah, darker stuff. When I was living in Paris with my wife. We lived there for a year, and I got in touch this kind of sound that it's now run by labels like Correspondent and yeah, a little bit compact. Yeah. So back then it was like the beginning of the genre that we call now dark disco, I guess. I don't like to label genres with names,
Right.
but yeah, it was kind of that sound, and that's the sound people say that I do, kind of. Uh, so yeah, I I I changed the name because of that. And going back to your question, if I if I got like benefits from it, and the thing is, I realized that I'm not a like a super socially network guy. I always struggle with that,
Yeah.
with doing socials, and so over the time I tend to be more and more like behind the scenes, like kind of a obscure producer. And
Totally.
yeah, and my experience is that it's not counter what's the word? It's not negative. It doesn't have a negative impact in your career to not not to do social networking that much. People might think that if you're not doing socials, you're lost nowadays. And I used to think like that, but then I realized that the most important thing in my style of music, of course, is just releasing music and
Right.
having like a regular output, quality output, and that's it. The people that need to hear you are gonna hear you. Like I mean, like they need to hear you in order for you to have a career, like promoters, you know?
For sure.
Yeah. So yeah, I mean, of course, social networks can help and can give you more exposure, but I think there's like this a little bit of mystery side if you are not overly exposed to social networks that can also work. I'm not saying that
Yeah.
there's only one approach.
Yeah, it's not exclusive. I think
Yeah,
it comes down to like what makes you happy as an artist, right? Like if you want to just put the stuff together. If you love just making the music and you want to be on that more mysterious side, in a lot of ways, it's similar to the days of old celebrity, like pre social media. Like now, everybody can share so many different parts of their lives. When before, with celebrities and musicians and DJs alike, there was that air of mystery. You didn't know what they were having for breakfast, and you didn't know where they went on vacation. And somehow that allows a fan base to sort of build up a mythos in their head, of like who is that artist behind the scenes. So I think that that's cool that you lean into that. I want to maybe follow up on the idea of like, okay, the music starts to switch tones, and then when does this decision come in to start a new project with a new name, and how do you make that decision versus saying, I'm just going to take my current artist identity and evolve it and go in a different direction? Like, was that a hard decision, or was that a very clear decision for you to make? Like, I'm definitely going to separate these two things.
yeah, I think it was kind of clear when the new music I was making didn't fit like my previous vibe. The only thing I had some doubts with was like if I should stop my previous project and start a new one. That was
Right.
like a difficult decision, so I decided not to do that, and I just started a new project and kept on releasing music under both alias, and that's what I'm doing now. And I don't think I'm gonna declare someday, in my Instagram or something like Bufi is dead, and now I'm only gonna do music as this one. No, I'm not. I'm not gonna shut the door. Definitely, just gonna leave it open, and whenever I want to make some music that I think could fit with the alias, I will release it under that name, and that's it. So I took that decision because I think it's the most practical one.
Yeah, totally. We just had a question come in from chat, and I want to remind folks that if you do have questions and they fit into the conversation, we'll weave them in today. And I want to say hello to Omar and Karina and Billy Bob, Kalana, Wonderful and Wander, and Powell, who just asked I think, a valuable question, which is, when you work as a DJ, do you play your own music, other music from other artists? And I guess the question is, I'm trying to translate here, like, what do you find more fun? Do you incorporate your own music in addition to other people's music in your sets? And then is there one that's more fun than the other, I guess is the question.
Yeah, that's a good question. I used to play I used to rarely play my music because I always felt bad if it didn't work well on the dance floor,
Right.
or if I felt that the mix wasn't ready, or something like that. Even if the crowd was dancing, but I heard like some bad EQ snare or something like that, some poorly balanced stuff on the mix, I was like, no, this is crap. I won't play it again until it's better. And that feeling, I guess, made me not to play a lot of my music.
It's a level of anxiety that gets added into the
Yeah,
set. Yeah.
yeah. So I kept on playing other people's music, but then over the time I gradually changed that because I started playing live more and more, like a live setup, which is for like made for the dance floor, made for the club. It's like a really small setup, just laptop, uh, Ableton push, and maybe one or two synths, like a drum machine to improvise some beats, and a synth to which has a sequencer, preferably like the microfreak you have back there.
Yeah.
That synth is amazing to play live because it has a very flexible sequencer and very easy to use and fast. So yeah, I make a live with that live session, and then I realized that yeah, it's cool and I should play my music more. And yeah, now I play it a lot more. I even do some DJ sets just with my music.
Wow.
With good results. And if I have some trouble, like with the mixes and stuff like that, I don't get that frustrated as before.
For sure.
And also, I think my mixes got better.
Yeah, I was going to
over time,
ask,
so.
Is it a result of like your skill building, and what steps did you sort of take to build those skills when you started to notice like, hey, these mixes aren't matching up? Like, what did you start to do to improve those mixes?
Yeah, well, it helped me a lot getting better at mixing when I started teaching mixing.
Interesting.
It's funny because yeah, I just remember my first lessons, my first teaching lessons that I gave a few years ago, like I don't know, 4 or 5 years. I started teaching, not on a regular basis, just like now and then, and I wasn't really sure of what I was talking about. I had to learn in the process of teaching. It forced me to learn a bit more in detail what I was
Right.
talking about. So I learned a lot there, and that started, like a learning process I think it hasn't finished
I
yet.
don't think it ever finishes.
It never finishes. But my mixes got better faster. I think I worked less to make them sound good. I think
Yeah.
now.
I think for a lot of beginners, it does feel like you need to keep adding stuff and you need to keep tweaking and you need to like make it more complicated to make it sound good. And then what I found over time is like the simpler you can make things is what gets it to sound good.
Totally agree, and that's what I tell my students now. Don't get too overly. Don't abuse the plugins. That's the first thing I say.
Yeah.
Don't abuse the. Don't put just EQs and preamp simulators and all over the session just for the sake of it. Because
Right.
I've seen people doing that. Like they think like it should sound better, right? I'm gonna put a preamp here or a compressor because it should sound better because that's what the pros do. They put preamps and compressors and fancy plugins. And always saying that you don't need to do that. And also the Ableton's built-in plugins are amazing. They're with every update of the software, they're better and they're lighter
Right.
than VSTs. But that's my opinion. I don't judge people using VSTs.
Yeah.
There are some
They're
amazing
definitely
VSTs.
lighter and it's a lot less expensive to just buy
Exactly.
the DAW and use what comes in the DAW for sure. That's epic.
Exactly.
I wonder blending the two worlds again, DJing and production, how much did you learn about mixing, not just based on being in the studio, but based on being in the club, based on like a house system, you know what I mean? And do you mix differently for or just having a track knowing that it might get played out in a club on a big system, does that inform your mixing?
You mean like if I get feedback from mixing at a club? That's the question.
Like even if you just like play something that you made in a set, I wonder if and you hear it on a big system versus you hear it in the studio, I wonder if you're going back and making either separate mixes, like one that's just for like listening pleasure, one that's for the live version, or if there's some happy medium you found in between like, okay, this sounds good in the club on the big system and it sounds good on like consumer headphones or whatever. I just wonder if that informs your process at all.
Okay. Yeah, it definitely influences the process, but I don't do separate mixes, like one for the house and one for the club.
Right.
I don't do that. If I go to a club and I hear some stuff that I need to fix, it's gonna sound different in the studio always,
Totally.
mostly because you don't have those subwoofers that clubs have. But yeah, that's why I bought a subwoofer because I think it's important to have one if you're making dance music.
Yeah.
Or any kind of music. But yeah, I just get some mental notes, or sometimes I write it down on my cell phone or whatever, like stuff like less sub on the bass, on the
Right.
kick drum, mostly on the bass. That was one of my most common errors, having a very big drum, kick drum and a very big
Subby
bass.
bass.
Yeah, both together, no, bad idea.
For
so
sure.
well, it all depends, but it usually made the subwoofers in the club like
Yeah.
excessively low, while in my studio it was like okay.
Of course.
But then after listening to that in a club, to all those bass frequencies too much, too all over the place, then you go back to your studio and you listen to it differently.
Yeah, you learn to adjust. Exactly.
Yeah.
You talked about a really cool live setup that you mentioned, like with using push and like a synth and a drum machine. I wonder, what's your process for taking a track that you made in the studio and converting it to a live performance? Is there Does the arrangement become different? Do you alter the track for live? I'd love to hear about that process.
Yeah, I think one of the greatest things about making live electronic music is that you can improvise a lot.
Yeah.
Because electronic music structures are so simple. It's basically like house music and techno is basically just breaks and not breaks,
Right.
like kick and section without the kick. In a very simplistic way, of course, it's more than that, but you can play with that simplicity. And I like to improvise a lot, and I like to change the structure of my tracks. So what I do is I just bounce like 6 stems of my tracks. I have kick individually, drums, percussions, synths, bass, and vocals.
Nice.
Mostly.
And that's universal across like all the tracks, so you can put them in one set?
Yeah, exactly. They all have the same standard stems, so they can all be in the same track, like the kick track for the whole live session, the bass track for the whole live session. And I use the session view, and I do 16 bar loops over the. So I put them in the arrangement view, and I divide every 16 bars.
Yeah.
And then I put it on the other side, and then I can play with the Ableton push. If I want to go with the original structure, I can. I can just
trigger the scenes.
Trigger the scenes going down. But if I say like, okay, this is enough, the break is too long, and I want to go back to the bass and to the,
Yeah.
I can do it whenever I want. That's the flexibility I have, and mostly I get to play and improvise between tracks. The
Right.
moment that the bass goes off in one track, and I'm waiting to put the other bass from the other track, from the next track, I can do a lot of stuff in between, like improvise with the synthesizers, make a new sequence, and yeah, it's pretty fun. I can, if I have a drum machine over there, I can make a new beat, and then I put the new track. So it's kind of like a hybrid between a DJ and a live. I got a lot inspired by Kink.
For sure. And all the controllers that he uses. Yeah.
Yeah. So yeah, my live is very much inspired by his. With the difference that he doesn't make the stems. He has like only one stem per track, and
it's kind of like live sampling vinyl and stuff like that, and looping.
Exactly. He does a lot more live stuff than I do.
It's intense.
I'm not as talented as he is with the with the fingers.
It also is just like the struggle is you want to preserve some of the original track, but you also want to honor that it is a performance, So I think the method that you described, it seems like the perfect blend between the two for having a comfortable live performance that is, bringing your material and then adding something to it.
Exactly. I totally agree. I heard some live acts from other people that are totally improvised, and what it happens most of the time is that it's very slow.
Sure.
All the transitions, because you have to, because you especially if it's just one person,
right? If you have to build everything.
Yeah, if it's 2 people, it can change a lot. It can be a lot more dynamic. But if it's only one person, you're not an octopus. You have to be one thing or 2 most maximum at a time. So yeah, it tends to be a bit slow. The build-ups, the breaks, everything tends to be a bit slow. And I think it's because of that, because you need to take care of the drums and then the synths, and and it all takes a little bit of time. While if you have a computer, you can just, play on top of something that it's already built, and maybe change a little bit of that, of the the sequence and the structure like I do.
For sure. I want to say hello to a couple new people in chat. What's up, Craig, Noah, Ronnie, and El Tacos? What's going on? Thank you all for joining. Feel free to throw questions in the chat, my friends. Make sure you like the stream while you're here if you are enjoying it. And also, if you're just tuning in now, don't worry. The full interview will be up later. And I would like to remind everybody that Theus has a pro sessions coming up this weekend. So if you want to get a deep dive, and I think you're going a little more, people are going to be able to dive into some of your projects. We'll actually see the behind the curtains in your DAW and all that stuff. So please check out that link in the description, and you can save with code TAETRO Talks at checkout. So check out that link in the description. Use the coupon code if you are interested in signing up for the pro session. But before we go, I want to talk more about gear and performing and all that stuff, because that's a lot of fun to talk about. But I also want to bring it back down for some of the folks who are getting into this world and asking, how do you start paying the bills as an electronic musician, as a producer, as a DJ? Like, I'm curious if you have, I think pretty much everybody that I've interviewed has had similar pathways, but diverse, different pathways at the same time. So do you want to maybe talk a little bit about how you started generating some income as a musician? Because I think that seems to be the biggest hurdle for people.
Yeah, well, it's easy. Just live with your parents and don't pay the bills.
Exactly. Perfect.
That's the secret.
Number one advice.
No, I'm joking. It's really possible. In my case, teaching was the solution in the early years of my career. And now that I'm switching more to incomes from production, it's all about the internet and building a portfolio of clients. I'm getting clients through my social networks, through Fiverr and those freelance pages that many people don't know. Actually, I've talked with a few producers about it, and they don't know about these pages, like these websites, and they're really helpful. The only thing is that it's so competitive already.
Right.
There's a lot of people offering the services, so you need to start from the bottom, and you need to start charging very, very low. Like I don't know. I used to charge a lot more for making a mix, like outside of this website. But now that I got into it, I know that I need to charge less in order to get my first clients. And I've been doing that, and slowly I've been raising up the prices.
Nice.
But I think those are the type of things that you can do. Otherwise, you can do YouTube like you do. I guess you have an income from it. Yeah.
I mean, it all goes into the teaching thing, what you said about teaching. And there's a number of ways, because, of course, I was a music major, and right out of music school, like, the only real marketable skills you've got is like pass on the knowledge that you've just learned. And then also maybe you can dip the toe in the water of whether it's, mixing or performance or whatever. But if you're fresh out of school, or if you're new to all of this, like, it benefits you in multiple ways too, because you talked about teaching, informing your mixing knowledge too, because once you have to explain something back to somebody, once you have to convey like an idea, you really learn how much of it you actually understand and how much of it you need to dive deeper and understand better. So in a way, teaching is not just a way to earn income and pass on knowledge, but it's also like a way to really get better at the thing that you're teaching,
Yes, totally. Yeah, that's another source of income.
Yeah,
that I have currently with everything that's happening. And basically, is that.
I also find that like teaching is like when you talked about like taking on your first mixing students and stuff. Like you're probably way better at mixing now than you were back then, but I feel like people think that they need to be experts in everything that they teach, when yes, there's value in that, but also you just kind of need to know a bit more than the person you're teaching, like to just pass on
Exactly.
knowledge, you know?
Yeah, totally. I was a bit intimidated by teaching because of that. I
Yeah.
thought I need to be like, a
You need to know
real,
everything and anything about
yeah,
the
a
subject.
master about everything, but
Yeah.
it's not true. You just need to know a bit more than your students. And
Yeah.
that's it.
I'm
And
curious.
I know how to transmit the
Exactly.
knowledge. That's important as well.
Yes. If you know how to explain things like really clearly and make it accessible to people, then it definitely improves your own skills because it simplifies your process and your thinking too.
Exactly.
I'm curious more about the Fiverr, the freelance side of things, because it sounds like you're having a fair amount of success with it. I'd love to hear more about that because I think a lot of people probably sleep on that, probably don't know too much about it.
I don't know if I would call it success, but I've already got a couple of clients from there,
Yeah,
and they are recurrent clients. So they've ordered more than once from me, which I think it's good. But it's difficult. As I said, the competition is very tough, and the prices are very low
right.
because of the competition. Uh, is it the right word? Competition?
Yeah, for
Uh,
sure. It's like if somebody's offering a mix for $5 and you're
yeah,
offering a mix for $300, I mean, at some
yeah,
point. But then it feels like since you have recurring clients and things, you're able to up the price and charge more, and people understand the quality, the value proposition more.
yeah. I hope so. But it's just an alternative source of income.
Yeah.
It's I wouldn't be able to depend on that for now. And yeah, I hope to grow the portfolio of clients. I'm offering like all kinds of services now, mostly production in different styles of music. I think I can do from hip hop to reggaeton to techno
Right.
to pop music to, yeah, I'm offering all of that stuff, indie type of sound as well. I'm offering film scoring. I'm offering
You're a one-stop
guitars
shop.
recording. Yeah, definitely.
That's awesome. I think my,
Thank
my
you.
mindset with like income in music is like I just want to be doing anything related to music and generating income from it. And I think people block off certain things so they feel like, oh, that's not 100% what I want to do. But I think like you want to be an artist, you got to kind of broaden that view and just go with all these things can generate revenue. You don't have to do one thing, or you don't have to hold yourself to
Yeah.
doing one thing.
Well, yeah, it all depends. If you're happy doing it, then do it. I'm happy
Right.
doing all types of music. Of course, I prefer to do some stuff than others, but it's good to have like, challenges sometimes. Uh, Sometimes they ask me to do like stuff that I'm not used to do, and it's a good challenge. And sometimes they ask me to do some stuff that I know I wouldn't be happy doing.
Right.
It will be a hard time for me, and I just decline those offers.
Yeah. And
That's
sometimes
okay.
learning what those things are is just as valuable as learning about the things that you really don't like that make you completely unhappy is just as important about learning about the things that make you happy
Yeah,
because you can draw a
you
line.
you need to experience them before you know. You need to
Exactly.
suffer a little bit
Yes.
before you know it's not for you.
All right, let's
Yeah.
let's shift and talk about gear because I know some folks in the chat are noticing the gear behind you, and I know we've already kind of touched on live performance. It sounds like you have a pretty minimal live performance setup, and you talked about using live. So I'm curious about your approach. It seems this blended experience in the box and then out of the box. Like, how would you describe? Oh, nice. We get a little
I think
even
you
more
can
of a
see a
view.
little bit more.
I love it.
So yeah, that's basically my setup for the studio, and it's all made so I can make the music without using the DAW.
Nice. So that's a completely DAW-less setup right there.
It could be, yes, even though I always use Ableton as the
Right.
master plug, and it's always running because I'm always recording the stuff that I do there. I can do a whole track with this setup because I have a sequencer, a long sequencer, which is the Pizza Pro. I have the modular setup. I don't know if you can see it. I have a drum machine there, micro freak, a couple of guitar pedals. I have this guitar pedal from Line 6, which is like a multi effects called HX Stomp.
Nice.
Super useful. I love it because yeah, it's a good solution for effects. I use it as a send effect, as a return effect with my sound card as the mixer.
Yep.
I mix in the box with a mixer with a sound card software, and I can send individually effects and and stuff from every synth that I have here. So every synth can have its own individual send output to the effects. And I have the HX Stomp and I have the Chaos Pad
Nice.
also, which is like kind of like outdated for some people. I feel like
I think it's
it
dope.
looks outdated.
It does
think
have
dope.
that chunky look to it, right?
Yeah. But I love it, and it's very good for live.
Totally.
I haven't found another thing like it for live because of the looping capabilities.
Right.
And all the, easy access effects tweaking. So yeah.
The easy access thing, how can you just like turn all these things on and walk up to it and start making music? Like, is it that convenient?
With this
Yeah.
stuff?
Yeah.
Yeah, totally.
And how important is that for you, for your process? Because that's like having a piano in a house. You walk up to a piano, you can play it, you can instantly start making music. This seems like the electronic equivalent of that. You might have to flip some on switches, but you just walk up to it and start making.
Yeah, I have a Bluetooth keyboard and a Bluetooth mouse.
Mm-hmm.
So I just get installed there with the keyboard and the mouse.
Nice.
And I just use them to press on and off record on the live session.
Yep.
But everything there can get immediately synced through the BeatStep Pro, which gets the clock from the computer, and then I spread the clock over everything. Everything has some of the synths there have a MIDI cable going directly from the sound card, but most of them get clock from the BeatStep Pro, especially the modular. And it's all ready. I just press play and everything starts running. The Volcas have their own sequencer and they're always in sync. Although I had this kind of weird problem that maybe you had, like they only get in sync when I'm using session view.
Interesting.
But if I'm using arrangement view, they get out of sync weirdly. I mean, they still are in sync, but the start trigger doesn't trigger on time.
That's so
weird.
Odd.
I sent emails to Ableton. Nobody knows what's happening.
Nobody knows.
Yeah.
That's so funny. Interesting. I don't know. I wonder, with all that hardware there, is 100% of your sound coming from the hardware, or do you end up filling any gaps later with VSTs or software instruments?
Yeah. So the process normally would be I just press play and I make the first sounds here, like with all the hardware. I make most of the track with it, and I record. Not everything at the same time. I record instrument by instrument. I make a beat here that can run, like totally DAW-less, but then I record instrument by instrument because I used to record everything at the same time. I have the capability to do that because of my sound card. I can record everything multi-track, but I don't do it anymore because I think it's better. It works better when I focus on every little thing that I'm recording one at a time,
Right. Oh, so that's interesting. So you're like building up the full loop, the full beat, and then you're paying special attention to each individual part when it comes time to record them.
Exactly. I can, for example, if I'm recording the drum machine, I can play with the knobs there,
Right.
opening and closing hi-hats and stuff like that. And I usually record clips, and then I keep on jamming. I just turn down the volume of of the instrument I just recorded, and I use the clip from Ableton, and I just keep on jamming until I have everything recorded
Right.
on clips, And then I go to the computer, and then I decide if I need more stuff. Sometimes I need more stuff, usually effects, fields, stuff like that.
Yeah.
Like drum fields and mostly like small arrangements.
So not a lot of soft synths. It's all mostly the hardware.
And sometimes soft synths. Sometimes I replace the bass.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, but usually if I'm gonna replace the bass, I'm gonna do it in the box.
Yep.
So
is that just to get a cleaner sound, or what?
No, just because it's faster.
Oh, got it.
Yeah, I have this. I don't know if it's anxiety, but I have to do things fast. Otherwise, I get,
inspiration is gone like that.
The inspiration goes
motivation.
away. I get saturated. I lose objectivity.
Yep.
For many reasons. So I have to do things fast. And if I have an idea already of a hardware base that could replace the base that I have, I just do it. I do it quickly. But if I'm gonna look out for something new and I don't have a clear idea of what I want, it's usually faster with software. In that case, I use a lot the Analog Lab from Arturia.
Nice.
I think it's very helpful for that. You can scroll between presets, and in the case that you don't have a clear idea of what you want, that's a good help. Just scrolling by presets, and you're gonna find probably something good.
For sure. Can we go completely off topic, and can you tilt your laptop slightly more the other direction so we can see the animal that's there that is just taking shape? I can't even tell. That cat is chilling. Is that the studio cat?
That's a house cat. I mean,
the house cat.
I'm at my place.
Nice.
Yeah, this is my home
studio.
But
that's great.
There's also a dog, actually.
There's a dog there as well?
You can see it in the background.
Oh, yes.
Cosmo.
Oh, wow. Blending in the background.
Yeah, he's the color of the
floor.
Of the floor, yeah.
We love that. I'm sure they love jamming in the studio too.
They do. They always come when I'm here. They like music, I guess.
Yeah. That's great. Yeah. All right. Sorry, I just had to go on that. I just had to notice, but I'm glad we got the bonus dog too, so that's epic.
You like cats? You have a cat?
No, I have a dog here. I've had cats before though. I love them both.
Yeah.
That's amazing. Cool. Let's bring it back to the music because we had a question come in from chat. Omar Chavez asks, what was the inspiration behind Labios Rojos?
Oh, Labios Rojos was a Bufi track that I released in 2011, I think. And, well, it's kind of a cover of a ska song from a very well-known Mexican band called Los de Abajo. And I decided to make a house version of it. It's not a remix. It's not a cover. I just sampled,
Right.
Like many electronic music artists, they just sample stuff. I sampled it. Then over the time, like some people have said that it's a cover, that it's a remix. I don't know, whatever. But
the lines get blurry in electronic music for sure.
Yeah, exactly. But it's based on a sample, a guitar sample.
Nice.
And it's kind of a darky, quirky track that I don't play much anymore, but people like it a lot. It's very joyful. It's
Nice.
very it's very uplifting, but it has a weird vibe that I still like.
For sure.
And
Awesome.
so yeah, do you want to talk about the session?
Absolutely. Let's do it because we're getting towards the end of the hour. Do you want to give us a little preview about what you're planning on covering and what it's going to look like for the 2 days?
Sure. So I chose to make the session about Max for Live plugins in Ableton Live.
Amazing. Let me just set it up for the audience too and remind them. So Theus has a pro session with 343 Labs this weekend. Anybody can sign up. It's a 2-day kind of thing. There's 2 sessions. It's a great way to spend the weekend. It's kind of a deep dive, and Theus is about to tell us exactly what you'll be diving into, but use the code TAETRO Talks because you can get a discount, and the link is in the description. So check that out. That coupon is only good for 24 hours after this interview. So take advantage, and it's this coming weekend. But yeah, go ahead. Tell us. So Max for Live devices. I'm interested.
Max for Live devices. So I chose to do that because I feel like a lot of people get a bit intimidated by Max for Live plugins, especially beginners.
I do, for sure.
You do? Okay.
Yes.
But you shouldn't, because they're free, most of them. They're easy to use, like most of like any other plugin. Maybe, yeah, some of them might be a little bit more difficult to use, of course, more experimental stuff. So that's why I'm gonna give a session about that. We're gonna just peel the surface of it.
Yeah.
I'm not gonna get into programming, because for people that doesn't know, Max for Live is the app. It's an adaptation of the Max MSP programming language.
Yep.
Made for Ableton, and you can make plugins with it. It's a programming
intense.
language.
I had a professor. She's a Arhu virtuoso, but she also does electronic music and processes, and she would build her own stuff in Max, and I would just look at it and say, I have no idea. I'll take the pre-built stuff in Max for Live any day.
Well, yeah, it can be intense, but that's why we're not gonna get into programming at all. We're just gonna check some of my favorite plugins, how I use them. I'm gonna give some examples in tracks that I made. I'm also gonna do some stuff from scratch using the plugins, and we're gonna see all kinds of plugins from sequencers, which you don't have in a with the built-in Ableton plugins. You don't have a sequencer. The most the thing that gets closer to it is the arpeggiator.
Yep.
Maybe to a sequencer. We're also gonna see some weird delays and some stuff to make weird sounds, because I think experimenting with music is something that gives a lot of value to your productions. Even if you're doing very commercial music, you have to try it. You have to try it, because it's part of what makes electronic music interesting,
Absolutely.
All the sonic experimentation. And so I think it can fit with any type of genre that you're interested in.
I think that's a perfect. The Max for Live subject is perfect because there are so many Max for Live devices in live, and it's just a little bit overwhelming. But you're right, because some of the best experimental stuff that's going to get you kind of like a new sound or just a different take, stuff you can't do otherwise without these devices, there's a lot of possibilities. I mean, one of my favorite Max for Live devices is Buffer Shuffler, and that is just like an amazing device for a really unique effect.
Which one?
Buffer Shuffler.
I don't know it.
Yeah, it basically processes incoming audio in steps, and it'll chop it up into steps, and you can like say 16 steps of this incoming audio, but then it can also dice it. So for each step, it can reverse the audio, or it can mute the audio, or play it forward. And then it it dices the way that it does that over time too, which is like super fun.
Yeah, it sounds a little bit like the new delay that has Ableton 11.
Oh, maybe.
Which is gated delay. Have you seen?
I have not played with gated delay. That's cool.
Gated delay, yeah. Yeah, you can do that kind of stuff, reverse and
nice
chop on steps.
Yes,
but yeah,
it might be similar. Yeah, that's awesome though. So it's Max for Life devices, and then you're gonna build some tracks, and you're gonna really like get into like the process there and all your processing techniques with those effects. It seems.
Exactly. Yeah. So at the end of the session, I'm gonna share the plugins with the people.
Awesome.
But anyway, I'm gonna use mostly free plugins.
Great.
Yeah.
That's super accessible. So folks, please check out the link in the description for the pro session this weekend. Take advantage of the code that works for 24 hours after the stream, TAETRO Talks, and spend your weekend with Theus Mago. That's what I say.
Yeah. So yeah, I just want to repeat that this is a session for all kinds of levels. You don't need to be, advanced. Although if you're advanced using Ableton Live but haven't used Max for Live plugins, this is just right for you. And if you're just starting with Ableton Live, this is also good for you. You don't need to be an expert in Ableton Live. It's just this additional tool that I'm gonna be showing to people that is super helpful, and I'm sure people is gonna like it.
Amazing. Well, Theus, you've been very generous with your time. Thank you so much for coming on the show today. It was a great chat.
Thanks to you for inviting me, and keep doing those amazing videos.
Thanks so much. All right, like we said before, if you want to sign up for the pro session this weekend, link is in the description. Use code TAETRO Talks to get that discount, but it only works for 24 hours after today's stream. If you tuned in late, don't worry. You can go back and watch this from the beginning. It will be up on both my channel and the 343 Labs channel, which you should make sure you subscribe to because I really want to get that channel to 10,000 subscribers, and we're very, very close. So youtube.com/343labs, 343labs.com for more of our classes and etc. And also tonight, I will be live again at 7 p.m. PST, 10 p.m. EST, making some lo-fi boom bap. So make sure you tune into that. The pre-stream is already live on my channel if you want to set a reminder. All right, so that's going to be it. Theus, once again, thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you.
All right, have a good one, everybody.
Bye.